Okay, Webster, I want to get into the economy, so let's accelerate through your point about the secession movements around the world, how they balkanize everywhere, or if they can, they want a powerful central government. If they've got that, that's fine. But if they want to bring something down or shut off a region, sanctions, they fund terrorists, they fund racial breakoff or religious breakoff groups. You were beginning to warn about that here in the United States. The states' rights movement being hijacked and turned into a secession movement. Then let's move into Pakistan. Let's move into what you see happening in North Korea with Russia, and then the economy.
Just in terms of what states can do, I would always say that the main level where you're going to fight a world economic depression is at the level of the federal government. And I urge people to regard government as the battlefield where the people confront the bankers. And if you don't fight the bankers concerning the government, in the government, then the bankers will control the government, and that's going to be bad. But if you have a mass movement of politically aware people, as you're saying, then you can push the bankers back and at least diminish their control over the government. Now, here's what I think those states can do. I wrote this program for California because this is the most acute case. In California, you have the whole economy collapsing and the place is descending into barbarism with Schwarzenegger. You've also got this thing going on in New York where the state government of New York has just about lapsed into chaos itself. It's a situation.
They're saying they're going to have the state police come arrest the members of the legislature.
It's unbelievable. So here's what you can do, though. Let's see. What can a state do? Rather than assert, general principles, or maybe in addition to the general principles, let's assert a substantive program. How are you going to fight the depression? You want states' rights? Fine. To do what? Here's what I would do. Tobin tax. You look around in California. Let's take California. Good example. Everybody's overtaxed. You don't want to put any more taxes on people.
But you want a local Tobin tax, not what the New World Order wants, right?
No, this is a state tax. In other words, the government of California in Sacramento can say, the only untapped source of wealth, it's not really wealth, but let's call it a cash flow. The only cash flow that is not taxed 6 ways to Sunday is financial speculation. Interesting coincidence, huh? Financial speculation, the most harmful of all activities, the activity that brought us derivatives and the depression, is completely untaxed. So let's have a Tobin tax, a securities transfer tax, which would be a 1% tax on all derivative stocks, bonds, foreign exchange, commodity speculation, the kind of speculation that drives up the price of gasoline.
Won't the feds claim a commerce clause on that?
Fight them. I mean, do something, right? Don't be paralyzed by what they might do. Let Obama come out and argue in the courts that that's impossible. No, I think a Tobin tax, if you can have a sales tax in California, it's a 9% sales tax in many areas. So if you want to go out and buy a pair of shoes for your kid, you pay 9%. What does the banker pay? There's a big financial district there in San Francisco with, Wells Fargo and Transamerica and all these people. That huge stylized pyramid with the Eye of Horus on top that people may have seen. They pay nothing. There's no tax. There's no sales tax on bankers.
Exactly. They tax us through the bureaucracy, and all the money's fed into their mouth.
Yeah, so I'm saying let's redress the balance. And if you say, is there anything to tax that's not already overtaxed, it's clearly speculation. So derivatives and speculation of all kinds, 1% tax paid by the broker, paid by the institutional partner in the exchange, not by you. So that, I think, that would do it for California. How about another one? Stop foreclosures. We've been on this program.
Oh, I got to stop you. I wanted to get into Malthusian economics. He wanted to bulldoze cities. He wanted to do things like that. For those that don't know, I know you know, Webster.
Right.
Obama saying bulldoze 1/4 of U.S. cities. This was the Brzezinski Pol Pot model, for those that don't know. And they just put it in USA Today like, well, of course we've got to bulldoze the cities. I mean, this is, instead of just letting people live in those, they're making them go to sports stadiums in California and Hawaii. We sent cameras out there, as we predicted. You're not allowed to stay on the streets now or at a park. You've got to go to a FEMA camp. Meanwhile, the feds are federalizing the cities and are going to bulldoze neighborhoods.
Yeah,
which is a code word for land grabbing.
Imagine the bulldozing Flint, Michigan. This is just national suicide. A healthy economy builds new cities. You don't bulldoze old ones. You develop absolutely new ones, right? The science cities, indeed, places that are built around a specific new industry that's emerging. But, as you're saying, in California, this is the capital of the Obamavilles, right? The Hoovervilles of the current depression. You want to do something about that? All right, state law, ban foreclosures for 5 years or the duration of the crisis. That also applies to family farms. That applies to any business, a restaurant, a dry cleaner. You can't be foreclosed on. You can't be driven out of business for reasons of financial debt for 5 years.
And by the way, let me stop you. Because we look at the Austrian view, which I heard you this weekend attacking, and we look at your egalitarian view, and so we let people, decide and think about themselves. But regardless, both of those systems are decidedly better than giving $14.8 trillion, as Bloomberg reported, in 7 months to offshore banks who then hoard the money and increase the price of loans and have accelerated foreclosures. So they promised, Bloomberg and AP reported, $9.4 trillion would have paid off all mortgages, not just mortgages in trouble, $45 million apartments, penthouses, $200,000 houses, $100,000 condos, everything paid off. That's our tax money to begin with. All real estate paid off, that's a dwelling. But no, now it's worse. No loaning, actual interest rates going up. And then the phony right wing will say, you're a communist, Webster, for saying just freeze the mortgages to these criminal banks. They've already been given more money than it's such a scam. But then meanwhile, the so-called conservatives want to give trillions more to the bankers and then have them not say where it went. That's the new conservatism.
My method basically says people stay in their homes. You throw an American family on the street, it's a federal crime. Wall Street can eat the losses. And as you say, this is not the main thing in the financial crisis. The goal of all these bailouts has very little to do with subprime housing or housing in any sense. The centerpiece is derivatives. 1.5 quadrillion of derivatives, credit default swaps, collateralized debt obligations, structured investment vehicles, asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities. And the mortgage-backed securities is where the subprime business comes in. But the goal of the Obama administration, the overriding purpose of Obama, is to try to bail out the derivatives bubble, 1.5 quadrillion, and it can't be done. And the only thing you can do is realize you're dealing with a black hole. It doesn't matter how much you shovel in there. You've got to have some kind of a disintegration ray that you fire at the black hole and get rid of it.
But that's what I was going to say, Webster, is that you said 5 months ago when I interviewed you for the Obama deception that the more money we pump into the bailout, the worse it gets, and that's actually happened. Loans are down, prices are up, foreclosures are accelerating, and the bankers are saying, put more in the black hole, that will fix it.
And, of course, it won't. So the answer, of course, is to shut down these banks. In other words, 16 out of the top 19 banks are insolvent and should be seized this Friday by Sheila Bair. And the fact that Sheila Bair, the head of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, has not seized Bank of America, Citibank, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of New York Mellon, and so on down the list. It's the top 16 out of 19 as far as I can see. That is a crime. Sheila Bair is violating the law, and this is simply illegal. She does shut down these little banks, tiny little banks in out-of-the-way places, rural America, out-of-the-way small banks. The difference, though, Alex, is the Austrian school will they may oppose what Obama does, but they still leave you with the depression. The American system of Hamilton, Clay, Lincoln, Kerry, Roosevelt, Kennedy, which I'm trying to represent, the American system actually deals with the depression and defeats the depression. So one side can say, let's defeat Obama. That's fine. But let's go beyond defeating Obama. We've also got a real economic depression that we've got to deal with. So California could have a Tobin tax. They could stop foreclosures. The other thing, how about reviving a state usury law? Many states, just about all of them, up until the Volcker era, had a limit on the amount of interest that you could charge within the state. This is clearly constitutional. So this was in place for many years. When Volcker began getting up to that 22% prime rate, which meant, for the average person, 30, 35 or more percent, these laws were swept away.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, how did Obama's reform mean that if you had a 15% rate on your credit card, it went to 25? How is that a reform?
Well, this is, again, it's the corporate state. And again, I have to call the only term for it is the Mussolini fascist corporate state, where corporation, it doesn't really refer to a modern corporation. It refers to a medieval guild where you've got government, business, and labor together, obeying the logic of the banks above all, not the logic of government or the people, but of the banks. And,
the whole universe is a food chain feeding into them at the top, and they've got to destroy things to feed. So they're not builders, they're destroyers, they're parasites. Webster, we kind of sidetracked into the economy first. I want to go through the geopolitical structure, then calls, then the economy. Okay, we'll be right back with Webster Tarpley on North Korea.